this is a mouth-watering match that's in the offing, and I find it difficult to call it.
And with Mayo playing, so as we know, of course, Mayo played in Leitrim last weekend. Roscommon had that week's rest. Who do you think has the upper hand in terms of form and in terms of rest as well going into the game?
Yeah, it's all about momentum. I like the idea that you're playing week on week, provided you can stay injury free. I do feel that Mayo will make a number of changes. I expect maybe Jim O'Connor, Kevin McLaughlin, I think Chris Barrett come on as a sub in the above in Carrick and Shannon. So that's all telling. I would expect and anticipate that there will be a number of changes, and I think James Horn will have had that in mind going to Carrick and Shannon. He would have taken a bit of a gamble with his team selection. And as I say, I expect changes. So as regards momentum, I suppose Mayo coming in on the back of a good bounce. Very, very good workout against Tyrone, albeit it's a game that I felt they should have won, going down the home stretch, win the sisters and man up. And they had lots of chances, turned the ball over and things like that. But it is what it is. But as I say, I just think it's very, very called when you say, who's got the upper hand as regards the week rest. I don't think it really counts for much, quite honest with you. I think Roscommon will have had a good, hard workout at the weekend, and both of them will come in here full of confidence, I expect.
You were in both dugouts for this fixture in the Connaught Championship before. What do you think when someone mentions to you, when I mention to you Mayo versus Roscommon, what comes to mind straight away?
Actually, look, it's a huge encounter. I mean, particularly Roscommon have gone really, really well in the last couple of years. They have a lot of talented footballers, and Murtaghs, Smith up front, and they're big and strong, and they've got a depth in their squad. And I have to say, their lot has improved enormously under Andy Cunningham, and they have, they're sprinkled with a couple of provincial championship victories in the last number of years as well. So the ones lacking confidence, and that's the one notable thing about the feature about Roscommon in recent years, is their confidence is sky high, and they have a lot of talent, and particularly up front. But they have a defence as well that are peak tough. So there's a lot going for them. But look, there's been some great battles. I was talking to a few friends of mine, Henry Gavin and Willie Joe Padden and Martin Carney there last week, and they were just talking about all the defeats they suffered at the hands of Roscommon, particularly in the 70s and the early 80s when Roscommon were really flying. But in recent times, probably Mayo, have had the upper hand. But as I say, right now, I think this is a very much a 50-50 game. Both teams will come in full of confidence, and it'll be a toss of a coin, I expect. But I do. If you are nailing me to make it a call on it, I think just Mayo just might have that little bit more. But as I say, I won't be gambling heavy on this one.
As we know, Ballydreen is kind of divided, split half and half between Mayo and Roscommon. Was there ever any players that you would have managed that always just gave it that bit more? Would it have been the likes of the Andy Morans from Ballydreen that would have given that bit more against Roscommon, or Roscommon lads against Mayo as well?
No, I'm sure you were never really privy to that, although you were aware it was going on in the background. Dermot Flanagan, Noel Durkin were others in my time that I was involved with, and you mentioned Andy, and there's been a few others, but look, that's healthy. That's what you want in these games in Championship football, the bit of rivalry and the bit of crack, and we have that with all our neighbours. And I'm obviously involved with Offaly, and obviously there's a bit of crack going on now leading up to the game against Kildare, because they live amongst and work with each other. So you'll always have that bit of fun. But isn't that what it's all about? The bit of crack leading into the game, and looking at YouTube clips now, supporters getting up on, putting out the call for albeit strange times, and most supporters won't be at the game, but just get the flags and the bunting up and what have you, and just trying to generate a bit of a championship atmosphere, albeit in the middle of winter in November. But strange times. But there's all you would expect, particularly on border towns, and as you say, the history and the significance of the Ballydreen situation, playing the Rates in Roscommon and playing their football in Mayo, that a lot of people around the country will reference and talked about. But sure, as I say, it's a bit of crack.
Is it one of the more enjoyable championships this year, John, with the week-on-week schedule, as you said? I know there's a lot of minor details that go along with it, but I'm sure it is an enjoyable championship for you.
Yeah, I have to say I've been thoroughly enjoyed it, and the fact that the nation can sit down in what are very, very difficult times, and people that will keep referring to the mental state of the nation, and no enjoyment, no socialising, no opportunities to get out and mix and have a bit of crack, whether it's in the local club or in the local pub. That's what do you turn to? And we're lucky that we've had a feast of sport. Like in the last Saturday in particular, someone sent me on a clip. We started off with Australia and the All Blacks at 9:30 in the morning, and went right throughout the day with hurling and football, and that's fantastic. And the fact that an awful lot of games are televised, whether it's TG Car or RTE or whatever, streaming by local counties themselves. So it's been absolutely terrific that we've had it. And the fact that it's running week on week on week is entertaining in itself. But as I saw, the uncertainty is always lurking over your shoulder, and obviously we're very much aware of what's happened now down in Sligo, and the obviously hurlers had the same scenario where they had to stand down for 2 weeks because of a close contact, and there's always an element of uncertainty. And one might surmise if it was a Kerry or a Dublin, what would happen if they had to force a lockdown and would be forced to forfeit the game. I'm not so sure, and I just feel for the Sligo boys. They've been preparing particularly well. I know Joe Kane, the coach, I was talking to him on and off during the season, and they work extremely hard, and they would have been looking really forward to playing Galway. And I hope for their sake the game goes ahead. But if they are down a couple of players, it'll be tough for them.
How do you prepare for that, John? The off chance that a situation may come in Offaly, like as we know, could come in any county, may come as it is in Sligo. How do you prepare for that with the players? Like, it's in the back of your mind that our championship could be out of our hands.
Well, you just keep reinforcing to comply with the protocols and the guidelines as much as you possibly can. But we have players like commuting from Galway and from Dublin, and my own case up from Castlebar to Offaly, and it's very unusual now to have 2 or 3 roadblocks on the way up, and that's now part of a modern pandemic situation that we are exposed to. We arrive in Connaught, 2 dressing rooms, guys coming on their own in cars, 1 person per car. We're temperature tested the minute we walk in the door. Everybody is mask wearing, and we're very, very conscious of a couple of guys at a time into the shower facility with no internal meetings, no video analysis being conducted. So all of that is very, very strange, and you just keep reinforcing because, as I say, your season could end with just maybe a close contact, someone picking up a positive test or a positive result, and the whole thing is gone in a second. And it'd be an awful waste of time if that happened. We all want to go and play the game and have a bit of fun, and because it is your choice of hobbies after all. This is and we're privileged and lucky that we are able to go out and play games and be involved in training, and particularly when so many others haven't got that luxury.
Absolutely. I asked this question last week. We did a championship preview with a couple of men that you know quite well, in Michael Miles and John O'Mahony, as well as Pa Ranahan from Limerick and Paddy McGill from Donegal. The 3 of them called Mayo for the Connaught. John O'Mahony's gone with Roscommon. What are you thinking yourself?
I would have said, obviously after that league encounter in Tuam, I would have said, yeah, definitely Mayo have really, really performed and trained exceptionally hard during COVID, and they have a lot of young talent coming through the ranks. But I knew that might have created a small bit of confusion insofar as I knew Galway wasn't that bad, and certainly Mayo wasn't that brilliant. And obviously they were beaten by Tyrone. I suspected that was going to be a very, very tough encounter for them. It's difficult. I would say Galway have slipped back. I mean, pre-COVID, Galway were flying. They were playing that expansive football that we all associate Galway teams with, and Roscommon then have jumped up the league rankings with that Division 2 title and promotion, and they look so comfortable against Cavan, and then we see what Cavan did last weekend against Monaghan. So I tell you, any of those 3, I'm immediately ruling out Sligo out of the equation there now, which I apologise for, but I have to say, in all honesty, I think it'll come down to I think there's a big, big game on Sunday, and whoever wins on Sunday, I think will win the Connaught Championship. And I just have a sneaking suspicion that Mayo might be that little bit hungrier for success and just might have that little bit of a more confidence coming into this particular game. And I just think if they get over Roscommon, I think they'll win the Connaught title. So for me, it's Mayo.
Yeah, and sure, as we know, 2015 was the last time Mayo were actually in a Connaught final. That was the year they won the 5th Connaught Championship in a row. They haven't been in one since, and if they want to progress, they'll have to go further. They'll have to win the Connaught Championship. But just to touch on Galway again, John, there's a few people that are, speculating does Pádraic Joyce have something up his sleeve? Was the performance against Mayo, was it actually all that bad for Galway? Do you think Do you think their performance against Mayo was an adequate representation of what it was to come from Galway for the remainder of the championship?
I have to say, I'm looking at the body language of Pádraic Joyce on the sideline because I had that game recorded and I came home to watch it. I have to say, certainly it wasn't part of any equation, it wasn't part of any script, great confusion or anything like that. They were just awful, they were dreadful. and they didn't appear to have a strategy. Their kick-outs far and against were all over the place. And certainly that was a jolt of them. But the thing about it came at a time when they had maybe time to fix things. Obviously, I think they made 7 or 8 changes for their game against Dublin, the final league game, and to put up a credible performance, and scoring 15 points in that game against Dublin in Pearse Stadium. Dublin appear to have gone back a little bit as well. They're not everyone's favourites to win the All-Ireland title this year, but no, I think Galway will still be a handful. And when it comes down to a championship encounter, whether it's Mayo against Galway or Roscommon against Galway, the reality is Galway have a lot of talented footballers, but unless they have the likes of Shane Walsh and Damien Comer on the pitch, they're 2 huge guys. Both of them were missing for the game, albeit Comer did start, but he limped off at 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
They lost their centre-half back that day, Johnny Dewan. They've had a lot of injury problems, and that, as I say, going week on week, that is always going to be an issue, and that's where your panel and the depth of your squad comes into play. But Galway looked like they opened the league campaign in a sparkle, and people forget now they only kind of won a couple of those games. I think 2 of the 3 National League games, or maybe I think there might have been 4 pre-COVID. There was, in fact. I think they only won a couple of those games by a point or 2. So it wasn't exactly that they were absolutely flying and beating teams out the gate. So they're not the finished article. They have a lot of young talent coming through, but the experience and guile of a Mayo team. Kenny O'Connor is back absolutely flying. He scored 1-9 as I say against Leitrim last Sunday, and he has really returned to form. So look, I think if it comes down to a Mayo and Galway Connaught final, I think Mayo would shade it, because I think there was a bit of damage done psychologically in that defeat of Galway in June.
It's certainly gearing up for an exciting Connaught final. John, the best of luck as well with Offaly next weekend against Kildare too.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.